r/AITA twin sister tried to steal my baby, so I cut her off forever. I was half asleep when the nurse shook my shoulder, her face pale in the dim hospital lighting. Ma'am, I need to ask you something. Are you currently in the NICU with your baby? My blood turned to ice. What? No, I'm right here. I've been sleeping. I struggled to sit up in the hospital bed, my C-section incision screaming in protest. Why would you ask that? The nurse's expression grew more concerned. There's a woman there now, claiming to be Emma's mother. She has the same face as you, and she knew all the details, your name, your daughter's birth weight, even your medical information. But something felt off. My identical twin sister Sarah's face flashed in my mind, and my stomach dropped. Take me there. Now. The wheelchair ride to the NICU felt like an eternity. My hands were shaking as we approached the unit, and through the glass windows, I could see her. Sarah, wearing scrubs that definitely weren't hers, holding my 3-day-old daughter Emma against her chest. She was attempting to position the baby to breastfeed, whispering something I couldn't hear. That's not me, I told the nurse, my voice barely above a whisper. That's my twin sister. The nurse's eyes widened, and she immediately called security while I watched in horror as Sarah tried to nurse my baby. The maternal rage that flooded through me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. This wasn't some innocent mix-up or postpartum confusion, this was calculated, deliberate, and absolutely terrifying. Security approached Sarah carefully, and I watched her face transform when she saw me in the wheelchair. For just a moment, she looked caught, guilty. Then her expression shifted into something I'd never seen before, cold defiance mixed with a twisted sense of ownership. There's been a mistake, Sarah said calmly to the security guard, still holding Emma. I'm the mother. She's confused from the medication. She gestured toward me dismissively. I've been here all morning taking care of my daughter. The audacity of it left me speechless for a moment. This was my sister, my twin, the person I'd shared a womb with, shared secrets with, been a bridesmaid for at her wedding 3 years ago. The same sister who'd been struggling with infertility treatments for the past 4 years, who'd cried on my shoulder after every failed IVF cycle. Give me my baby, I managed to say, my voice stronger now. Sarah, give me Emma right now. Your baby? Sarah's laugh was bitter and sharp. I think you're the one who's confused, sis. Check the hospital records. I've been listed as the mother since birth. There was a mix-up with the paperwork, but it's been corrected. The head nurse appeared with a tablet, frowning at whatever she was reading. I'm showing conflicting information in our system. We need to sort this out immediately. My heart pounded as the horrible realization hit me. This wasn't some spontaneous breakdown. Sarah had planned this. She'd somehow manipulated hospital records, stolen scrubs, and waltzed into the NICU like she belonged there. How long had she been planning this? How long had she been watching, waiting, preparing to steal my daughter? Run my fingerprints, I said, forcing myself to stay calm. Check my ID bracelet. Do whatever you need to do, but get my baby away from her. Now. Sarah's grip on Emma tightened slightly, and that's when I knew this was about to get much, much worse. The standoff felt like it lasted hours, though it was probably only minutes. Sarah held Emma closer to her chest while security guards positioned themselves strategically around the NICU. Other new parents started gathering at the windows, drawn by the commotion, their faces pressed against the glass like we were some twisted reality show. Sarah, please, I tried one more time, keeping my voice steady despite the panic clawing at my throat. You're scaring me. This isn't you. Her laugh was hollow. Isn't me? You have no idea who I am anymore. She looked down at Emma with such genuine tenderness that it made my skin crawl. Do you know what it's like to watch your sister get everything you've ever wanted? You got pregnant on the first try. One try, while I've been stabbing myself with needles and swallowing hormones for 4 years. The head nurse returned with hospital administration and what looked like a supervisor. They huddled together, whispering urgently while checking their tablet. My stomach dropped when I saw their confused expressions. Mrs. Peterson, the supervisor addressed me cautiously, we're seeing some discrepancies in our records that we need to resolve. According to our updated files, Sarah Peterson was admitted 3 days ago for a cesarean delivery. That's impossible, I said, but my voice cracked. My name is Rebecca Morrison. My maiden name was Peterson, but I've been married for 2 years. Check my insurance, check my prenatal records, check anything. Sarah's smile was triumphant. Rebecca's been going through a difficult time, she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. Postpartum depression can cause delusions. I'm worried she's having some kind of breakdown. The supervisor looked between us, clearly overwhelmed. We were identical twins wearing similar hospital gowns, both claiming the same baby. We're going to need to verify identity through multiple sources. In the meantime, the infant will remain in hospital custody until... No. Sarah's voice turned sharp. I'm not leaving my daughter with strangers because of my sister's mental health crisis. That's when I noticed the small duffel bag near her feet. My blood turned to ice as I realized she'd come prepared to leave. This wasn't just about holding Emma or playing pretend mother for a few hours. She was planning to take my baby home. Check that bag, I said urgently to security. I bet she's got everything ready to walk out of here. The security guard looked to the supervisor, who nodded grimly. As they unzipped Sarah's bag, I watched my sister's confident expression flicker for the first time. Inside were baby clothes, diapers, a car seat manual, and, most horrifying of all, what looked like official documents. These appear to be birth certificate applications, the supervisor said slowly, examining the papers. And insurance forms. My mind reeled. How is that even possible? The baby was just born 3 days ago. Sarah's mask was starting to slip. I have every right to those documents. Emma is my daughter. I don't care what lies Rebecca has been telling you, but I carried that baby for 9 months. Then where's your C-section scar? I challenged, gesturing to my own bandaged incision. Where are your stretch marks? Where's literally any evidence that you gave birth? For the first time, Sarah hesitated. But instead of backing down, her expression grew more desperate, more dangerous. You don't understand, she whispered, clutching Emma tighter. I can't lose another baby. I can't. Emma knows me, she needs me. I've been here every day since she was born, feeding her, holding her. She's mine now. The way she said mine made every parent in the vicinity step back instinctively. This wasn't grief or confusion anymore. This was obsession. The security guard stepped forward, but Sarah immediately backed toward the NICU exit, still clutching Emma. Don't come any closer, she warned, and something in her voice made everyone freeze. I've already lost 7 babies. 7. I'm not losing this one too. My heart stopped. 7? Sarah had only told me about 3 miscarriages and the failed IVF attempts. How much had she been hiding from me? Sarah, I said carefully, trying to keep my voice calm while panic consumed me, put Emma in the bassinet and we can talk about this. Just. Please don't hold her so tight. Talk? Her voice cracked. Like how we talked when you called to tell me you were pregnant. You were so casual about it. Oh, by the way, I'm having a baby. Like it was nothing. Like you didn't know it would destroy me. The administrator was quietly speaking into her radio, probably calling for more help, but I couldn't focus on anything except my daughter and my sister's increasingly unstable grip. I thought you'd be happy for me, I whispered, remembering that phone call 6 months ago. Sarah had congratulated me, had even thrown me a baby shower. She'd seemed genuinely excited to be an aunt. You never said. Of course I never said. Sarah's voice rose, startling Emma, who began to cry. What was I supposed to say? Please don't have the baby I'll never have? Stop living the life that should have been mine? As Emma's cries grew louder, Sarah began bouncing her with jerky, agitated movements that made me feel sick. She didn't know how to properly support a newborn's head. She was going to hurt her. You're holding her wrong, I said, unable to hide the desperation in my voice anymore. Sarah, please, her neck. Don't tell me how to hold my own baby, she snapped, but I saw uncertainty flicker across her face as Emma's crying intensified. That's when my husband Mark appeared in the doorway, still in his work clothes. He must have gotten the frantic call from the hospital. His face went white as he took in the scene, his wife in a wheelchair, his newborn daughter in the arms of her clearly unstable aunt, and security guards positioned like this was a hostage situation. What the hell is going on here? Mark demanded, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made everyone turn toward him. Sarah's eyes lit up when she saw him, and my stomach dropped. Mark. Thank God you're here. Rebecca is having some kind of breakdown. She's claiming Emma is her baby, but you know that's not possible. Tell them about Rebecca's problems. Mark's confusion was evident as he looked between us. Sarah, what are you talking about? Rebecca just gave birth to our daughter 3 days ago. You visited us in the recovery room, remember? But Sarah shook her head frantically. No, you're confused too. I've been here the whole time. I'm the one who's been taking care of Emma while Rebecca was unstable. The most terrifying part was that Sarah seemed to genuinely believe what she was saying. Her delusion was so complete, so detailed, that I could see doubt creeping into Mark's expression as he tried to process the impossible situation. Check the medical records, Mark said to the administrator. My wife's name is Rebecca Morrison. I have all her insurance information, her medical history, everything. We're trying to sort that out, the supervisor replied grimly. But someone has altered our digital systems. We're having to verify everything manually. Sarah smiled triumphantly. See? The records show the truth. That's when I realized this went deeper than I'd imagined. Sarah hadn't just planned to take Emma, she'd been systematically building a case to support her delusion. She'd hacked hospital systems, forged documents, and created an elaborate fantasy where my baby belonged to her. And now she was trapped in that fantasy, holding my 3-day-old daughter like a lifeline while reality crumbled around all of us. The hospital administrator pulled Mark aside, speaking in hushed tones while showing him something on her tablet. I watched my husband's face cycle through confusion, anger, and disbelief as he read whatever Sarah had fabricated. This is insane, Mark said, loud enough for everyone to hear. According to this, Sarah was admitted under Rebecca's insurance policy. It shows her as the primary patient, but... He trailed off, looking at me with growing alarm. Babe, how is this possible? Because I've been planning this for months, Sarah said, her voice eerily calm now. Emma had finally stopped crying and was nestled against her chest, which only made the whole scene more disturbing. You have no idea how easy it is to manipulate digital records when you work in medical billing. My blood ran cold. Sarah's job at the insurance company. She'd always been good with computers, had access to medical databases, knew exactly how hospital systems worked. I'd never connected the dots before, but now. You've been planning to steal my baby for months? The words felt surreal leaving my mouth. While I was pregnant? While you were helping me set up the nursery? Sarah's expression grew dreamy, almost nostalgic. I was setting up Emma's nursery. Every little outfit you bought, every toy, every piece of furniture, I was memorizing it all so I could recreate it perfectly at home. She won't even know the difference. Mark stepped closer to the security guards. This woman is delusional. She's been stalking my wife throughout her pregnancy apparently. Stalking? Sarah laughed, but there was a manic edge to it now. I'm her twin sister. I had every right to be involved in Emma's life. More right than you, actually. What the hell does that mean? Mark demanded. It means, Sarah said, shifting Emma to one arm while reaching into her pocket with the other, that Emma was always supposed to be mine. The universe just made a mistake. She pulled out what looked like a folded document, and my heart stopped as I recognized the letterhead. It was from the fertility clinic where she'd been receiving treatment. Sarah, I whispered, what is that? Proof, she said triumphantly, unfolding the paper. Dr. Harrison confirmed it last month. The fertility treatments changed my body chemistry, made me produce phantom pregnancy hormones. The tests show I was pregnant at the same time as you. The administrator took the document, frowning as she read. This appears to be some kind of hormone analysis, but I'm not sure what it's supposed to prove. It proves that Emma is mine. Sarah's voice rose again, startling the baby. My body was preparing for her even while she was growing in Rebecca's womb. Don't you see? She was meant to be my daughter, but there was a biological mix-up. Emma's real mother is me. The security guards exchanged glances, clearly dealing with a level of delusion they'd never encountered. Mark looked like he wanted to physically wrestle Emma away from Sarah, but with a newborn involved, any sudden movement could be dangerous. That's not how pregnancy works, the head nurse said gently, clearly trying to de-escalate. Hormone fluctuations can happen for many reasons. Don't patronize me. Sarah snapped. I've spent 4 years studying every aspect of pregnancy, fertility, and childbirth. I know more about having babies than any of you. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach lurch. Sarah wasn't just holding Emma, she was wearing what looked like a hospital bracelet. The kind they put on patients during admission. How did you get that bracelet? I asked, pointing to her wrist. Sarah glanced down and smiled secretively. I told you. I've been here since Emma was born. This is my patient bracelet. The administrator grabbed Sarah's wrist before she could pull away, scanning the barcode with a handheld device. Her face went pale as she read the results. This bracelet was issued to Rebecca Morrison, she said slowly. But it's been altered. Someone changed the photo. The pieces were falling into place, and each revelation was more terrifying than the last. Sarah hadn't just planned to take Emma, she'd been systematically stealing my identity, my medical records, my entire experience of giving birth. And now she was trapped in a delusion so elaborate that I wasn't sure she could find her way back to reality. Even if she wanted to. The altered hospital bracelet was the final piece of evidence the security team needed. Within minutes, the NICU was swarming with police officers, but Sarah seemed oblivious to the escalating situation. She was cooing at Emma, completely absorbed in her fantasy of motherhood. Ma'am, we need you to hand over the infant, Officer Rodriguez said, his voice professionally calm but firm. We can sort this out at the station. Sarah's head snapped up, her eyes wild. You can't take her from me. I'm her mother. She backed toward the corner, clutching Emma so tightly that the baby started fussing again. Where's my lawyer? I want my lawyer. You can call a lawyer after you surrender the child, Rodriguez replied, stepping closer. Right now, we need to ensure the infant's safety. That's when Sarah said something that made my blood freeze. Emma's not safe with Rebecca. She doesn't know about the medical condition. Mark and I exchanged panicked glances. What medical condition? I demanded. Sarah, what are you talking about? Sarah's smile was eerily serene. The heart murmur. Dr. Chen detected it yesterday during Emma's examination. She needs special monitoring, specific feeding schedules. Rebecca's been too unstable to handle the care instructions properly. My mind raced. Emma had been examined multiple times since birth. There was no heart murmur, no medical issues at all. But the way Sarah spoke about it, with such confident detail. Check the baby's medical records, Officer Rodriguez instructed the administrator. Verify any medical conditions immediately. While they pulled up Emma's file, I watched Sarah whisper to my daughter. Don't worry, sweetheart. Mommy's not going to let anything happen to you. We'll go home soon, and I'll show you your real nursery. Everything's pink and white, just like I dreamed. Sarah, I said desperately, Emma's nursery is yellow and green. You helped me paint it. Remember? You said the yellow was too bright, so we mixed in some cream. For a moment, Sarah's confident expression flickered. I could see her struggling, like she was trying to reconcile two different sets of memories. Then her face hardened again. That was before I knew the truth. Before I understood that Emma was always meant to be mine. She looked directly at me, and I saw a stranger behind my sister's eyes. You were just the surrogate, Rebecca. My body couldn't carry her, so the universe used yours. The administrator looked up from her tablet, relief evident on her face. There's no record of any heart murmur or medical conditions. The infant's health records show completely normal development. Sarah's reaction was immediate and terrifying. You're lying. Dr. Chen told me himself. He said Emma would need specialized care, that only someone with medical experience could handle it properly. Her voice grew shrill. Check again. Check the updated files. Ma'am, there are no updated files, Officer Rodriguez said firmly. Now please, hand over the baby before this situation escalates further. Escalates? Sarah laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. This is my daughter. My name is on her birth certificate, my insurance is paying for her care, my medical information is in her file. How is protecting my own child an escalation? That's when Mark pulled out his phone and showed something to the police officer. I've been recording everything, he said quietly. Including her confession about planning this for months and altering the hospital records. Sarah's face went white as she realized what Mark had captured. You can't use that against me, she whispered. I'm family. Family doesn't steal babies, Mark replied, his voice harder than I'd ever heard it. Family doesn't forge documents and commit identity fraud. The word fraud seemed to snap Sarah back to partial reality. She looked around the NICU as if seeing it clearly for the first time, the police officers, the security guards, the other parents staring through the windows in horror. This wasn't supposed to happen like this, she murmured, finally loosening her grip on Emma slightly. I needed her. You don't understand what it's like to be empty for so long. But instead of handing Emma over, Sarah did something that made everyone in the room tense up. She started walking toward the exit. Sarah, stop. I screamed, but she was already at the NICU doors, somehow having slipped past the officers in the chaos of the moment. The automatic doors whooshed open, and I watched in horror as my sister carried my baby into the main hospital corridor. Officer Rodriguez immediately radioed for backup while another officer pursued Sarah on foot. Mark grabbed my wheelchair and started pushing me after them, ignoring the protests from the medical staff about me leaving the unit. Lock down all exits, I heard someone yell behind us, and suddenly the hospital's overhead speakers crackled to life. Code pink. Code pink. Infant security alert. We caught up to Sarah at the bank of elevators. She was frantically pressing the button, Emma crying in her arms as the stress of the situation finally seemed to penetrate Sarah's delusion. When she saw us approaching, she spun around, her back against the elevator doors. Stay away from us, she shouted, and I could see she was crying now too. I won't let you take her back to that house. It's not safe there. What are you talking about? Mark demanded, positioning himself between Sarah and the main hospital entrance. Our house is perfectly safe. You've been there 100 times. Sarah shook her head violently. That was before I knew about the gas leak. And the mold problem. And the electrical issues. Her words came out in a rush, each one more bizarre than the last. Dr. Martinez from the health department called yesterday. He said the house failed inspection, that it's unfit for an infant. My heart sank as I realized Sarah had fabricated an entire secondary narrative to justify her actions. She hadn't just planned to steal Emma, she'd created elaborate reasons why Emma needed to be stolen. Sarah, there's no Dr. Martinez, I said as gently as I could manage while my daughter screamed in the arms of someone who was clearly having a complete psychological break. There's no gas leak, no mold, no health department inspection. You're not thinking clearly. The elevator dinged, and the door started to open behind Sarah. She stepped backward into it, still facing us, still clutching Emma. I have the inspection report, she said desperately. It's in my car. I can show you the photos of the damage, the test results, everything. You can't take Emma back there until it's fixed. Officer Rodriguez appeared at the end of the hallway with 2 additional officers. They were approaching slowly, clearly trying not to spook Sarah into doing something even more dangerous. What floor are you planning to go to? Mark asked, trying to keep her talking while the officers got into position. Sarah, think about what you're doing. This isn't you. Parking garage, she said automatically, then her eyes widened as she realized she'd revealed her escape plan. I just need some air. Emma's crying because the air quality up here is too poor. The elevator doors started to close, but Officer Rodriguez managed to get his hand in to stop them. Sarah pressed herself against the back wall of the elevator, Emma's cries echoing off the metal walls. Ma'am, step out of the elevator, Rodriguez commanded. You're making this much worse for yourself. Worse for myself? Sarah's laugh was bitter and broken. You have no idea what worse looks like. Worse is 4 years of negative pregnancy tests. Worse is watching your sister get pregnant accidentally while you're spending your life savings on fertility treatments. Worse is being told your body will never work the way it's supposed to. As she spoke, I could see hotel key cards and what looked like a car seat base visible through the elevator doors behind her. She really had planned to leave the hospital. She had somewhere to go. Sarah, I whispered, where were you taking her? Her smile was heartbreaking and terrifying at the same time. Home. I was taking her home. The word home sent ice through my veins, because I knew Sarah wasn't talking about her apartment downtown. She had that dreamy, distant look again, the same expression she'd worn when describing Emma's real nursery. What home, Sarah? I asked carefully, while Officer Rodriguez signaled to his backup. Your apartment? She shook her head, bouncing Emma gently as my daughter's cries grew more frantic. The house I prepared for her. The one where everything is perfect, where she'll be safe. Her voice dropped to an eerie whisper. It's exactly like the house we grew up in, remember? Mom's old house? I found one just like it, 3 hours north. Emma will love it there. My blood turned to ice. Mom's childhood home had been sold years ago after our grandmother died. But the way Sarah spoke about this mystery house, with such specific detail. You bought a house? Mark asked, his voice tight with disbelief. When? How? 6 months ago, Sarah said proudly, as if this was perfectly normal behavior. Right after Rebecca told me she was pregnant. I knew Emma would need a proper home, away from all the contamination and danger in the city. 6 months ago. She'd been planning this since the moment I'd announced my pregnancy. While I was picking out cribs and reading parenting books, my sister was buying a house and building an elaborate fantasy life around my unborn child. Sarah, you can't just buy a house for someone else's baby, I said, trying to keep my voice steady while my mind reeled. That's not how families work. She's not someone else's baby. Sarah snapped, startling Emma into louder sobs. The DNA tests will prove it. When they compare Emma's blood to mine and yours, they'll see that I'm the real mother. Identical twins share genetic markers that can get confused during pregnancy. Officer Rodriguez stepped closer to the elevator. Ma'am, that's not scientifically possible, and you know it. Please step out so we can discuss this calmly. But Sarah was already pressing buttons on the elevator panel frantically. I won't let you stop me. Emma needs her real mother, and she needs to get to safety before the contamination affects her development. What contamination? Mark demanded, but the elevator doors were starting to close again. The chemicals from the hospital construction, Sarah called out as the gap narrowed. The paint fumes, the asbestos, the radiation from the medical equipment. Don't you see? That's why Emma keeps crying, she's being poisoned just being here. The doors closed with a soft whoosh, and I watched the floor indicator start moving down. Parking garage. She really was going to try to drive away with my baby. How many exits does the parking garage have? Officer Rodriguez barked into his radio while stabbing the button for the second elevator. Mark was already pulling out his phone. I'm calling her husband Tom. Maybe he can talk sense into her. But as we waited for the elevator, a horrible thought occurred to me. Mark, I said slowly, when was the last time you actually saw Tom? He paused in his dialing. At Emma's birth, I think? He brought flowers to the recovery room with Sarah. No, I said, my stomach dropping. That was just Sarah. She said Tom was parking the car, but he never came up. We stared at each other as the awful realization hit. If Sarah had been planning this for 6 months, if she bought a house and created elaborate lies about contamination and health inspectors. Call Tom, I whispered. Call him right now. Mark's hand shook as he dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times before going to voicemail. Tom's cheerful voice echoed in the hospital corridor. Hey, you've reached Tom Peterson. I'm out of town on business until next Friday, but leave a message and I'll get back to you. Out of town. Sarah's husband had no idea what she was doing. She was completely alone in her delusion, and now she was in a parking garage with my baby, probably heading toward a car that would take Emma hundreds of miles away to some isolated house where no one would think to look. The second elevator finally arrived, and we piled in with 2 officers. As we descended toward the parking garage, I could only pray that we weren't already too late. The parking garage was a maze of concrete pillars and shadowy corners, with cars packed tightly on every level. Officer Rodriguez immediately radioed for the exits to be blocked, but I could hear the frustration in his voice. There were at least 4 different ways out, and Sarah had a significant head start. What kind of car does she drive? He asked as we split up to search the garage. A silver Honda Accord, Mark replied, but his voice cracked with realization. Wait, no. She traded that in last month. She said she needed something more reliable. He looked at me with growing horror. She bought a minivan, Rebecca. She bought a family car. My wheelchair bumped over the rough concrete as Mark pushed me between rows of vehicles, desperately scanning for any sign of Sarah. The garage echoed with the sounds of car engines starting and doors slamming as confused hospital visitors found themselves trapped by the sudden lockdown. That's when we heard Emma crying. The sound was coming from the far corner of the garage, near what looked like a maintenance area. We rushed toward it, and I spotted the minivan, dark blue, with temporary plates and what appeared to be blackout curtains covering the rear windows. There. I pointed, but even as we approached, I could see Sarah through the windshield, frantically trying to install a car seat while Emma wailed in her arms. She was sobbing now too, her movements jerky and desperate. Officer Rodriguez approached the driver's side carefully, his hand resting on his radio. Ma'am, please turn off the engine and step out of the vehicle. Sarah looked up at us through the windshield, her face streaked with tears. She'd changed out of the hospital scrubs and was now wearing what looked like a new mother's outfit, soft pink sweater, comfortable jeans, even a diaper bag sitting in the passenger seat. I can't get the car seat to work, she called out through the cracked window, her voice breaking. The instructions don't make sense, and Emma keeps crying. She's hungry, but I don't have any formula, and I can't. She trailed off, staring down at my daughter with genuine confusion. For the first time since this nightmare began, Sarah seemed to be facing a reality she hadn't planned for. She'd orchestrated this elaborate kidnapping, created false documents, fabricated medical emergencies, but she hadn't figured out how to actually care for a newborn. Sarah, I said, rolling my wheelchair closer to the car, Emma needs to eat soon. She's on a very specific feeding schedule because she's so young. You know that. I have formula, Sarah insisted, gesturing toward the diaper bag. I bought everything. Bottles, diapers, clothes in every size. I've been preparing for months. But as she spoke, I could see her hands shaking as she tried to support Emma's head. The baby's cries were growing more desperate, and Sarah was clearly panicking. Newborns need to eat every 2 hours, I continued gently, trying to keep my voice calm. When did she last have a bottle? Sarah's face went blank. She was nursing earlier. In the hospital. Sarah, you can't breastfeed, Mark said firmly. You know that. Emma hasn't eaten in over 4 hours. The reality of what she'd done seemed to hit Sarah all at once. She looked down at Emma, then at the car seat she couldn't install, then at the bottle she didn't know how to prepare. Her elaborate fantasy was crumbling against the basic requirements of actually caring for an infant. I don't know what I'm doing, she whispered, and for the first time all day, my sister sounded like herself again. I know you don't, I said softly, seeing the cracks forming in Sarah's facade. But you can still make this right. Hand Emma to me so I can feed her, and we can figure this out together. For a moment, I thought she might actually do it. Sarah's arms relaxed slightly, and she looked at me with something that resembled the sister I used to know. Then her phone rang. The sound made everyone freeze. Sarah glanced at the screen, and her face went completely white. It's Tom, she whispered, staring at the phone like it was a bomb. He's supposed to be in Denver until Friday. Officer Rodriguez stepped closer to the car. Answer it, he instructed. But put it on speaker. Sarah's hands were shaking so badly she could barely swipe to accept the call. Tom's voice filled the parking garage, confused and increasingly frantic. Sarah? Thank God. I just got the weirdest call from your insurance company. They said there was suspicious activity on our account, something about a hospital admission? But you're not sick, are you? I tried calling earlier but... Tom, Sarah interrupted, her voice artificially bright. Hi, honey. You're supposed to be at the conference. The conference ended early. Sarah, what's going on? The insurance rep said someone used our policy for a delivery. A baby delivery. Are you at the hospital? Are you hurt? I watched my sister's face cycle through a dozen different expressions as her carefully constructed lies began collapsing. She'd planned for everything except her husband coming home early. I can explain, she said desperately. It's not what you think. Rebecca was having complications, and I had to help with the insurance paperwork because she was too confused. Confused about what? Tom's voice grew sharp. Sarah, you're scaring me. Where are you right now? Officer Rodriguez gestured for Sarah to continue, but I could see her starting to panic again. Emma's cries were getting weaker, more plaintive, and my maternal instincts were screaming. I'm at the hospital, Sarah admitted. With Emma. Who's Emma? The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Sarah opened her mouth, closed it, then looked directly at me through the windshield. I could see her realizing that she'd never actually told her husband about her plan because even she knew how insane it sounded. She's my daughter, Sarah whispered. The silence on the phone was deafening. Then, Sarah, what the hell are you talking about? We don't have a daughter. The IVF failed last month, remember? Dr. Harrison said we needed to take a break from treatments. No, Sarah said, her voice growing more agitated. No, that's not right. Dr. Harrison confirmed the pregnancy. I had the test results. I have everything documented. Sarah, I was with you at that appointment. There was no pregnancy. You had a breakdown in the parking lot afterward, don't you remember? We talked about maybe taking a vacation, maybe considering adoption. Stop. Sarah screamed, startling Emma into a fresh bout of crying. Stop lying. Everyone keeps lying to me. She hung up the phone and immediately started trying to restart the car, but her hands were shaking too badly to turn the key properly. Tom started calling back immediately, the phone buzzing insistently on the dashboard. Sarah, Officer Rodriguez said firmly, your husband is telling the truth. You know he's telling the truth. He's confused, she insisted, but I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. The treatments, the hormones, they affect memory sometimes. I read about it online. That's when Mark said something that made my blood run cold. Sarah, what's in the back of the van? We all looked toward the rear windows, covered by those blackout curtains. Sarah's eyes darted toward the back, then quickly away, but not before I caught a glimpse of something that made my stomach lurch. Guilt. Pure, unmistakable guilt. It's just supplies, she said quickly. Baby supplies. But Officer Rodriguez was already walking toward the back of the van, and Sarah's breathing grew rapid and shallow. Whatever was behind those curtains, it was something she definitely didn't want us to see. Something that might explain just how deep her obsession with my baby really went. Officer Rodriguez pulled back the curtain covering the rear window, and what I saw inside Sarah's van made me physically sick. It was a complete nursery. Not just baby supplies, an entire room recreated in the back of a minivan. A portable crib was bolted to the floor, surrounded by stuffed animals, a changing station, even a small rocking chair secured with bungee cords. The walls were covered with fabric in soft pastels, and there were dozens of framed photos. Photos of me throughout my pregnancy. Photos of Emma from the hospital. Photos I'd never seen before, taken from angles that meant Sarah had been watching us, following us, documenting us without our knowledge. Jesus Christ, Mark breathed, staring at what was essentially a mobile kidnapping kit. Sarah, how long have you been planning this? But what made my blood turn to ice wasn't the nursery setup, it was the other photos mixed in with the ones of Emma. Photos of other babies. Other newborns in hospital bassinets, some with different last names visible on their identification cards. Officer Rodriguez, I whispered, those other babies in the pictures. He was already on his radio, calling for backup and what sounded like detectives. We need to run missing persons reports for newborns in the tri-state area over the past 6 months, he said grimly. Sarah was watching us discover her mobile nursery, and instead of looking ashamed, she seemed proud. I told you I was prepared, she said, repositioning Emma in her arms. Every baby deserves a perfect space. Some of their parents just didn't appreciate what they had. My mouth went dry. Some of their parents? Sarah, what does that mean? Nothing happened to them, she said quickly, too quickly. I just observed. I wanted to understand different parenting styles, see how other mothers cared for their babies. Research. Mark pulled out his phone and started photographing everything in the van while Officer Rodriguez continued his radio communications. I could hear terms like pattern behavior and potential serial attempts crackling through the static. How many hospitals have you been to? I asked, dreading the answer. Sarah's smile was eerily serene. 7. Maybe 8. I wanted to make sure I understood proper newborn care before Emma arrived. I watched, I learned, I took notes. She gestured toward a thick binder visible in the front seat. I have detailed charts about feeding schedules, sleeping patterns, optimal room temperatures. You've been stalking new mothers for months, Officer Rodriguez said, his voice hard. Breaking into hospitals, impersonating patients, accessing confidential records. I wasn't stalking anyone. Sarah's voice grew shrill, making Emma cry harder. I was educating myself. Do you know how irresponsible it is to have a baby without proper preparation? These women just wing it. They don't research, they don't plan, they don't understand what they're risking. The way she said these women made my skin crawl. She wasn't just talking about me anymore. She'd been targeting multiple new mothers, studying them like specimens. Sarah, I said carefully, did you ever try to take any of the other babies? Her hesitation was answer enough. There was one in Hartford, she admitted. But her mother was more attentive. And the baby in Springfield had security complications. She spoke about attempted kidnapping like she was discussing grocery shopping logistics. Officer Rodriguez stepped closer to the van. Ma'am, you need to surrender the infant immediately. We're now looking at potential federal charges across state lines. But Sarah was shaking her head frantically. You don't understand. I never hurt anyone. I needed to practice. I needed to make sure I could be the perfect mother when my time came. As she spoke, Emma's cries grew weaker, more desperate. My daughter was getting dehydrated and exhausted, and Sarah was too lost in her delusion to recognize the danger. Your time came and went, I said firmly. Now my daughter is suffering because of your fantasy. Sarah's face crumpled, but instead of surrender, I saw something far more terrifying in her eyes. The look of someone with nothing left to lose. Sarah's face twisted into an expression I'd never seen before, desperate, cornered, and completely detached from reality. She suddenly lunged forward in the driver's seat, managing to start the van's engine despite Officer Rodriguez reaching for the door handle. Sarah, no. I screamed as the van lurched backward, nearly hitting a concrete pillar. Emma's weak cries turned into terrified wails as Sarah fought to control the vehicle with one hand while clutching my baby with the other. Officer Rodriguez dove out of the way as Sarah threw the van into drive, tires squealing against the concrete floor. Mark pushed my wheelchair behind a parked car just as she careened past us, heading for what I realized was a maintenance exit, one that didn't appear to be blocked yet. She's heading for the north exit. Rodriguez shouted into his radio, but I could see police cars just arriving at the main entrances, not yet in position to stop her. The sound of Emma's crying echoed off the garage walls as Sarah's van disappeared around a corner, heading for the ramp that would take her out onto the street. In seconds, she'd be on the main road with my baby, potentially hours away from the isolated house she'd prepared. We have to follow her, I said desperately, but Mark was already helping me out of the wheelchair and into our car. My C-section incision screamed in protest, but I didn't care. Nothing mattered except getting Emma back. Mark started our car while Officer Rodriguez coordinated with his backup through his radio. All units, suspect is in a dark blue Honda Odyssey, temporary plates, traveling north from General Hospital. Infant in vehicle, consider extremely dangerous. As we pulled out of the parking garage, I could see Sarah's van about 4 blocks ahead, driving erratically through downtown traffic. She was running red lights, swerving between lanes, clearly not thinking about the danger she was putting Emma in. She's going to crash, Mark said grimly, pressing our car faster to keep up while police sirens wailed somewhere behind us. She can't drive safely while holding a baby. Through our windshield, I watched in horror as Sarah's van sideswiped a parked car and kept going. Other drivers were honking and swerving to avoid her, some pulling over in confusion as the police pursuit intensified. She's heading for the interstate, I realized, watching her take the on-ramp. Mark, if she gets on I-95 north, she could disappear for hours before they set up roadblocks. But as Sarah's van merged into highway traffic, something went wrong. The van started weaving more dramatically, slowing down instead of speeding up. Through the rear window, I could see Sarah's silhouette, her head was turned toward the passenger seat, toward Emma, and her shoulders were shaking. I think something's happening, Mark said, pointing ahead. Look. Sarah's van was drifting toward the shoulder, hazard lights flashing. Cars were passing her now, and I could see police vehicles approaching from multiple directions, their lights creating a strobing pattern across the afternoon sky. The van came to a stop on the shoulder about a quarter-mile ahead of us. As we pulled up behind the police cars, I could see Sarah through the windshield, still holding Emma but no longer trying to drive. She was crying. Deep, body-shaking sobs that were visible even from a distance. Emma stopped crying, I whispered, and my blood turned to ice. Mark, why can't I hear Emma crying anymore? We sat in our car, watching police officers surround Sarah's van with weapons drawn, while the most terrifying silence I'd ever experienced stretched across the highway. My 3-day-old daughter had stopped making any sound at all. The silence from Sarah's van was deafening. I watched Officer Rodriguez approach the driver's side window with his weapon drawn, while 2 other officers positioned themselves at the rear of the vehicle. Through the windshield, I could see Sarah hunched over something in her arms, but I couldn't make out any movement from Emma. Why isn't she crying? I whispered, gripping Mark's arm so tightly I was probably cutting off his circulation. Babies cry when they're scared. Why isn't Emma making any noise? Mark was already getting out of our car despite the police gesturing for civilians to stay back. I'm the father, he shouted toward Officer Rodriguez. Is the baby responsive? The answer came not from the police, but from Sarah herself. Her voice carried across the highway's shoulder, broken and desperate. She won't wake up. Something's wrong, she won't wake up. My heart stopped. I struggled out of the passenger seat, my C-section incision tearing in protest, and stumbled toward the van. Officer Rodriguez was speaking to Sarah through the cracked driver's window, his weapon still drawn but lowered. Ma'am, we need you to hand over the infant so our EMTs can examine her, he was saying, his voice professionally calm despite the urgency of the situation. I didn't mean for this to happen, Sarah sobbed, holding Emma's limp form against her chest. She was crying so much, and I thought if I gave her some children's Benadryl, it would help her sleep during the drive. Just a tiny amount, just to keep her calm. The world tilted sideways. You gave her what? I screamed, no longer caring about police protocols or my own safety. Sarah, she's 3 days old. You don't give medication to newborns. The internet said it was safe. Sarah cried, but I could see the panic in her eyes as she realized what she'd done. Just a few drops in her bottle. She was so upset, and I couldn't make her stop crying, and I thought. You thought wrong, Mark snarled, pushing past an officer to get closer to the van. How much did you give her? When? 20 minutes ago? Maybe 30? Sarah's voice was getting higher, more frantic. Just half a teaspoon, that's what the website said for babies who can't sleep. Those websites are talking about older babies. I was screaming now, not caring who heard me. Infants Emma's age can't process adult medications. You could have killed her. Officer Rodriguez was already radioing for an ambulance while trying to coax Sarah out of the van. Through the passenger window, I could see Emma's tiny face, pale and still, her lips slightly blue around the edges. She's not breathing right, Mark said, his voice deadly quiet. Look at her chest, she's barely breathing. Sarah finally seemed to understand the severity of what she'd done. I was trying to help her, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I just wanted her to be comfortable for the trip home. I didn't know. I researched everything, I planned everything, but I didn't know. Give her to me right now, I demanded, reaching through the window. Sarah, she needs medical attention immediately. For a moment, Sarah clutched Emma tighter, and I saw the same possessive desperation that had started this nightmare. Then she looked down at my daughter's still form and something broke in her expression. I heard her, she said, the words barely audible. I heard the baby I was trying to save. She finally handed Emma through the window, and the moment I touched my daughter's skin, I knew we were in serious trouble. Emma was warm but limp, her breathing shallow and irregular. Her tiny body felt wrong in my arms, too relaxed, too unresponsive. As sirens wailed closer, marking the arrival of the ambulance, I found myself facing a horrifying new reality. Sarah hadn't just tried to kidnap my baby. She might have accidentally poisoned her. The ambulance ride to the hospital was the longest 15 minutes of my life. Emma was hooked up to tiny monitors, her miniature chest rising and falling in irregular patterns that made the EMT's face grow increasingly grim. Benadryl poisoning in newborns can cause respiratory depression, the paramedic explained while starting in 4 in Emma's impossibly small arm. We're giving her fluids to help flush it out, but at her age and weight. He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. My 3-day-old daughter was fighting for her life because my sister had Googled baby care advice. Mark rode in front with the driver while I stayed in back, holding Emma's hand between my thumb and forefinger. Her skin was still too warm, her breathing too shallow, and every few seconds the monitors would beep in ways that made the EMT adjust her oxygen mask. Is she going to have brain damage? I whispered, voicing the fear that was consuming me. From the lack of oxygen? We caught it early, the EMT said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. The pediatric team at Children's Hospital is the best in the state. They'll know what to do. Through the ambulance's rear window, I could see the police escort surrounding us, their lights flashing in patterns that reminded me of the NICU alarms. Somewhere behind us, Sarah was in a police car, probably still crying about how she'd only wanted to help. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Rebecca, this is Tom Peterson. The police told me what Sarah did. I'm driving back from Denver now. I'm so sorry. I had no idea how sick she'd gotten. I stared at the message, realizing that Sarah's husband was finding out about his wife's complete mental breakdown through a police report. How long had she been hiding her delusions from him? How long had she been planning this while appearing completely normal at family dinners and birthday parties? The ambulance pulled into Children's Hospital, and suddenly we were surrounded by a trauma team in scrubs. They transferred Emma to a gurney so small it looked like a doll bed, wheeling her away while shouting medical terms I didn't understand. Activated charcoal won't work with diphenhydramine, one doctor called to another. How long since ingestion? Approximately 45 minutes, the EMT reported. Patient is a 3-day-old female, estimated dose was 2.5 milliliters of children's Benadryl. The lead doctor's expression darkened. That's nearly 10 times the safe dose for an infant her age. Get respiratory therapy down here immediately. Mark and I were left standing in the emergency room hallway, watching our daughter disappear behind swinging doors marked authorized personnel only. My C-section scar was bleeding through my shirt from all the physical exertion, but I couldn't bring myself to care about anything except Emma's labored breathing. The police want to interview us, Mark said quietly, pointing toward Officer Rodriguez, who was approaching with a notepad. They need our statement for the kidnapping charges, but now it's attempted murder, I finished, the words tasting like poison. Sarah didn't just try to steal Emma. She nearly killed her. Officer Rodriguez looked uncomfortable as he joined us. Mrs. Morrison, I know this is a difficult time, but we need to discuss additional charges. The district attorney is considering upgrading this to aggravated kidnapping with endangerment of a minor. Before I could respond, the trauma room doors opened and a doctor in pediatric scrubs emerged, her expression unreadable. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison? We need to discuss your daughter's condition. And I'm afraid there may be complications we didn't initially anticipate. The pediatric doctor's expression was carefully controlled, but I could see the concern in her eyes. I'm Dr. Martinez, she said, leading us to a small consultation room. Emma is stable for now, but we've discovered some additional complications from the Benadryl ingestion. My legs gave out, and Mark had to help me into a chair. What kind of complications? The medication has caused significant inflammation in her airways, and her kidneys are struggling to process the drug at her age, Dr. Martinez explained, sitting across from us. We've got her on respiratory support, but we need to keep her sedated while her body works through this. Sedated? Mark's voice cracked. For how long? Potentially 24 to 48 hours. At her age, any medication stays in the system much longer than it would in an older child. Dr. Martinez pulled up Emma's chart on a tablet. The good news is that her heart rate has stabilized, and we're not seeing signs of seizure activity, which was our biggest initial concern. I felt like I was drowning. Will there be permanent damage? It's too early to know. Infants Emma's age are incredibly resilient, but they're also more vulnerable to toxicity. We'll need to monitor her kidney function, her breathing, and her neurological responses over the next few days. My 3-day-old baby might be fighting for her life for days because my sister had lost touch with reality. There's something else, Dr. Martinez continued, her voice growing more serious. During our examination, we found evidence that Emma had been given other substances as well. Mark and I stared at her in horror. What do you mean, other substances? Trace amounts of what appears to be infant formula mixed with chamomile tea, and possibly some kind of homeopathic drops. Did you authorize any alternative feeding methods? No, I whispered, feeling sick. I've been breastfeeding exclusively since birth. She shouldn't have had anything else. Dr. Martinez nodded grimly. That's what I thought. The combination of these substances with the Benadryl is what's making her recovery more complicated. Her digestive system is essentially in shock. Officer Rodriguez, who had been quietly taking notes in the corner, looked up sharply. Doctor, could these additional substances be considered evidence of premeditation? If the suspect was drugging the infant over multiple occasions? I can't speak to legal implications, Dr. Martinez replied, but from a medical standpoint, this suggests a pattern of inappropriate medication administration. We'll need to test Emma's hair follicles to determine if there were other instances. Hair follicles. They were going to test my newborn daughter's hair to see how long my sister had been secretly drugging her. The thought made me physically ill. How is that even possible? Mark demanded. Rebecca's been with Emma constantly since birth, except when Sarah was visiting. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The visits, I said slowly. Every day since Emma was born, Sarah insisted on helping with feeding time. She said she wanted to bond with her niece. My voice grew stronger as the horror of realization set in. She was bringing her own bottles. She said it was backup formula in case I got tired. Officer Rodriguez was writing rapidly. How many times did your sister feed the infant? At least 6 or 7 times over 3 days. Maybe more. I looked at Mark, seeing the same sick understanding in his eyes. She was drugging Emma from birth, conditioning her to be calm and compliant. This wasn't a spontaneous kidnapping attempt, she was preparing Emma to be stolen. Dr. Martinez stood up, her expression grave. We need to run more comprehensive blood work. If there's been ongoing medication administration, it could affect Emma's recovery timeline significantly. As she left to order additional tests, Officer Rodriguez closed his notepad with a snap. Mrs. Morrison, what your sister did goes far beyond kidnapping. We're looking at systematic child abuse, possibly attempted murder. The district attorney is going to want to pursue the maximum charges. Before I could respond, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Tom Peterson's number. I'm here at the police station, Tom's voice was shaking when I answered. They're saying Sarah might have been planning this for months. Rebecca, I swear to you, I had no idea. She seemed normal when I left for Denver. She was sad about the failed IVF, but not this. Through the consultation room window, I could see nurses wheeling equipment toward what I assumed was Emma's room. My daughter was fighting for her life while my sister sat in a jail cell, probably still convinced she'd been trying to save her. Tom, I said quietly, I think Sarah's been hiding this breakdown for a long time. The question is, how long has she been planning to take Emma? His silence was answer enough. And as we sat in that sterile hospital room, waiting to see if my baby would survive her aunt's twisted love, I realized that the sister I'd grown up with, my twin, my best friend, was gone forever. The only question now was whether she'd taken my daughter with her. 2 weeks later, I was finally bringing Emma home from the hospital. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine as I carried her car seat through our front door, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she looked like a normal, healthy baby. The doctors had assured us that the kidney damage was minimal and would heal completely, and her neurological tests had come back normal. She's going to be fine, Mark said for the 100th time, but I could hear the relief in his voice. We'd both been afraid to believe it until now. My phone buzzed with a call from Officer Rodriguez. The trial was next week, and they needed to go over my testimony one final time. But first, he had news. The FBI finished their investigation, he said. Your sister had been planning this for 8 months, not 6. They found a storage unit rented under a fake name, filled with baby supplies and surveillance photos of you throughout your pregnancy. She'd been following you to doctor's appointments, taking pictures through your windows, documenting your daily routine. I sat down heavily on our couch, still holding Emma close. 8 months. She started planning to steal my baby before I even knew I was having a baby. There's more. They found evidence that she'd been researching how to forge birth certificates since last Christmas. She'd also been corresponding with other women online, ones who'd lost custody of their children or were dealing with infertility. She was part of some disturbing forums about reclaiming babies from unfit mothers. The scope of Sarah's delusion was still unfolding. Tom had filed for divorce and was cooperating fully with the investigation. He'd found journals in their house describing elaborate fantasies about raising Emma, detailed plans for homeschooling her, even a fake family photo with Sarah's face photoshopped over mine. What's she facing for charges? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Aggravated kidnapping, attempted murder, identity fraud, child endangerment, and stalking across state lines. The prosecutor is confident she'll get 15 to 20 years, minimum. 15 to 20 years. My twin sister, who I'd shared everything with for 28 years, would spend the next 2 decades in prison for trying to steal my daughter. Has she shown any remorse? I found myself asking. Rodriguez paused. Mrs. Morrison, she's still insisting that Emma belongs to her. Her lawyer is pushing for an insanity plea, but she refuses to cooperate. She keeps saying you'll come around and realize she was trying to protect Emma from your inadequate parenting. After I hung up, I looked down at Emma, who was sleeping peacefully in my arms. She had no idea how close she'd come to disappearing forever, how many people had fought to bring her home safely. Mark sat beside us, wrapping his arms around both of us. She's never going to hurt Emma again, he said firmly. Sarah will never get near our family again. I thought about the sister I'd lost, not to prison, but to an obsession so complete it had consumed everything good about her. The Sarah who'd helped me through breakups and celebrated my wedding was gone, replaced by someone capable of kidnapping and poisoning a newborn. I know, I said, kissing Emma's forehead. And maybe that's the saddest part of all. But as Emma stirred in my arms and opened her eyes, healthy, safe, and home where she belonged, I felt something I hadn't experienced since this ordeal began. Peace. My daughter was safe, my family was protected, and justice was coming for the woman who tried to destroy everything I loved. Sarah had lost everything in her quest to steal my baby. And I had everything I'd ever wanted, right here in my arms.